Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content. So I just got done watching Penn State play Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl, and my first reaction is Abdul Carter, no matter what. Outside of that point, which I'm very serious about, the reason I was interested in this game, because there were some guys on both sides of the field in this one that I think are going to be interesting for the Browns at different spots, right? We've talked about it. The Browns are probably going to look for a DTR replacement in this draft, somebody who could be a developmental quarterback 3, potentially a backup. Riley Leonard has been in the conversation for that. When you talk about guys who could come out the draft and maybe they could shake up the board, we also had the discussion about Drew Aller, right? Could Drew Aller have a good game or a good playoff, make a run to the national championship, potentially win a national championship, and really shake up what the draft board is? Well, Drew Aller just had himself one of those games that guarantees you're going back to college. Like, he has to go back to college. Now, I think he should consider, and I've said this for a while, if he does go back to college, he should consider not returning to Penn State. The reason I say that is Penn State's losing so much talent this year. They're already so empty at wide receiver talent that it makes evaluating him difficult. And like the offense they put him in, I just don't love how Penn State takes him out of rhythm to put Tyler Warren in the backfield and to do all this other gimmicky stuff. I don't love Penn State's offense game plan at all. I don't think they do a great job there. But I do think Aller has some tools and some traits that are interesting, but you want to see them applied in something that's a bit easier to project. I think he should go back to school and possibly play for somebody else. Understanding how this game just went, though, right? You throw that interception, you let your team down like that, the last thing he can do is leave. So, yeah, he's going to probably have to come back to Penn State. And I don't know if that's going to be good for him, because I don't think Penn State's going to be very, very talented next year, at least at the same level. We're talking about Penn State having like 6 draft picks this year, or even more than that this year versus whatever they're going to have next year. So tough go for Drew Aller. Tough go for Drew Aller. You're losing like 2 NFL running backs, an NFL top pick tight end, and then on the other side, they're losing another top pick in Abdul Carter. Like, there's no guarantee Penn State's going to be even remotely as good as they were this year and next year. And look, I know it's going to be real easy for a lot of people to dunk on Drew Aller or anybody who ever believed in Drew Aller or anything like that. And I don't want to close the book on the kid, because I don't think that's even close. I do think he's really talented. I do think he has a lot of the tools that you need to be successful. And most of the times he shows an ability to use those tools in a way that's productive towards winning football games. So I don't think we should just close the book on Aller because he had this horrible game. But as far as like Drew Aller in the 2025 draft class goes, yeah, that book should be closed because he's just not ready yet. He's not ready to come out the oven yet. I know a lot of Browns fans wanted this to be the case so that they can run up, take Drew Aller, get the hometown kid at number 2, and that can also be a quarterback that they can justify getting. But it's just not going to be that, right? Like, especially after that game, drafting Drew Aller at 2 is going to be as much as a dicey proposition as going after Shedeur Sanders or going after Cam Ward. And that's from the opinion of me, somebody who likes Drew, right? Like, he's just not ready yet. I think he needs another year in college. I think preferably in a different offense, but given how this season ended for him, he's got to stay at Penn State. Riley Leonard, on the other hand, is a different conversation. I just saw Colin Cowherd compare this dude to Josh Allen, and I want to make something clear. I'm saying the Browns should draft Riley Leonard, or should consider Riley Leonard, not even like guaranteeing that they should take him, but just should consider him because he could be a backup. And I also want to be clear here. If I'm talking about the Browns drafting a quarterback in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round, I'm talking about that guy potentially being a backup. Now, could you get super lucky and the guy break through? Yeah, but you shouldn't depend on that. Like, Riley Leonard at best, you should hope for him to be a backup. And I think there's some backup potential there. Same thing with like Will Howard. Same thing with like Dylan Gabriel. Maybe one of these guys breaks through. They could start a little bit, right? Surprises you. But you should draft them with the intent of them being a potential backup, not with the intent of you being a starter. Like, I hope y'all understand the difference in that. Not saying that you should close the book on them ever being able to start potential-wise, just saying that should be the expectation, is for them to be a backup eventually, instead of a starter, like, or like envisioning them as a starter. I think you're just setting yourself up for failure there. But that's my thoughts about the quarterback portion of this. I also want to talk about running back real quick. Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, I think they both had good games in different ways. Katron, again, just showed you he's just a bruiser, man. Like, if he were bigger, he might be a fullback, like in old school NFL standards, because he's such a good lead blocker too at times. And I think he really showed something there. Nick Singleton, I'm getting more and more moved on him because 10 just looks so good running the ball today. You imagine him in a wide zone, one cut downhill guy. He's 235 pounds. He's going to run really fast at the combine. Good receiver out the backfield, even though he dropped the one pass that Aller was behind him on. And then what I also thought was impressive, there were a couple times where Notre Dame sent some hot blitzes at him, and he just got right in there and just killed that stuff. So, yeah, Nick Singleton, 10, 13. I thought Kobe King had himself a rough night. I'm a fan of him in the later rounds as a linebacker. Not a great coverage guy, I think, in the NFL, but I do think he's going to provide some value as a Mike linebacker in the league. And I think he'll get better at coverage, too, in the NFL once he gets some NFL coaching as well. I also think since the NFL is like trending towards running the ball more, getting bigger linebackers is going to be important to pair with your smaller athletic guys. The Browns have a ton of small linebackers who are athletic. Get somebody like Kobe King, who's still a really good athlete, still able to move around well, but also a big enough guy that he can thump on run situations. Like, I don't think it's a mistake that Devin Bush is now at a point where he can be a successful linebacker versus earlier in his career, just because I think the meta of the NFL has moved more towards what he can do athletically at his size versus what it was when he first entered the league, on top of him obviously developing and getting better. I think bigger linebackers are going to become more in vogue as the years go on. And right now you're at a sweet spot where somebody who's a big linebacker, good athlete, good mover like Kobe King is not going to be highly sought after in the draft, but is going to be valuable to you going forward if teams continue to do this. Remember, the Browns need bodies, bigger bodies on the interior of their run game. That's somebody they can add that helps to that. I'm a big fan of 41 for the Cleveland Browns. I know it's not the most traditional scheme fit, but I do think there's something there. The guy I do think is going to be in the conversation at 2 is Abdul Carter. And boy, did Abdul Carter show the world why he should be, I think, probably the top overall pick in this draft. There are a lot of Browns fans that are convinced that we can trade back and get Abdul Carter. I just don't think that's the case. Like, I don't see how that's not somebody who should probably go number 1 in this draft. I get the quarterback argument, and maybe Tennessee is so desperate and wants a quarterback so bad that they take Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders number 1 overall. But there's so many people telling you that that's probably not a good idea, right? So many people who just look at the film, so many people who've watched college football this year. You don't have to search hard to find people with an informed opinion who have watched enough college football to tell you, I don't know if I would take one of these guys number 1 overall. You do have to search hard to find somebody who is like gung-ho excited about taking one of these guys number 1 overall and has watched enough football and is not just excited about a quarterback getting drafted. So if a quarterback isn't going to go number 1 overall, what position usually goes number 1 overall? Tackle and edge. And there is no competition at edge. Abdul Carter is the best edge rusher in this draft. And he should probably be the best prospect in this draft. Now, he still has to test. We still got to see what the medicals are on him. The combine's going to be important for him. I get all of that. But tell me right now, like, just eye test, watching that game, that dude's not the best guy, the best prospect in this draft. I've done a film breakdown of him. I've watched him a ton. He has bend that rivals Von Miller. He has quickness that rivals Micah Parsons. I mean, look at the names you're comparing him to. Two guys who are going to win, who has won Defensive Player of the Year and has been, I believe, the MVP of a Super Bowl. And the other one is Micah Parsons, who will likely win a Defensive Player of the Year. We're talking about two dudes, one of them definitely a Hall of Famer, another one possibly could be a Hall of Famer, that you're comparing Abdul Carter to. And I don't know if you could trade back and get that dude. Like, you think teams are going to take a defensive tackle over that? Think teams going to take a left tackle in a draft that doesn't have one over that? Like, maybe Travis Hunter's in that conversation, right? Maybe you can. I think it's more realistic, and maybe I'm wrong on this. We'll see what happens during the draft. I feel like the more realistic conversation is if you can trade back and get Travis Hunter. Because I can see NFL front offices getting cold feet about that. Because Travis Hunter is a corner. You don't usually draft corners in the top 3. And then also Travis Hunter is a corner who has missed a lot of games due to injury. He wants to play both sides of the football. Maybe I'm on my Sonny Weaver Jr., right? But I feel like, for me at least, it's Abdul Carter no matter what. And we got to really start being realistic about what trading back means, because I just don't see how you can trade back and get that dude. Maybe teams get cold feet because of his size. Maybe teams get cold feet because he's not the biggest guy in the world. But, man, I just don't know how you think you can get that guy at 6. Like, you think 5 teams are going to pass up on what Abdul Carter is doing? He, with a hurt shoulder, mind you, right? He came into this game with a hurt shoulder, and he controlled this game in the first quarter. And at the end of the game, he did a really good job of just maintaining Penn State's ability to stay in this game, despite the fact that they were getting straight up erratic quarterback play on the other side. So now when we have to have trade back conversations, I know you can go on your mock draft machine, trade back and get Abdul Carter, but that's not reality, right? Mock draft machines are fun. Mock draft machines are useful for exercises about what to do if this happens, but mock draft machines aren't an accurate predictor of who's going to be there at certain picks. What it is an exercise. And that's why I like doing mock draft machines, right? It's an exercise of, okay, if this guy's on your board and that guy's on your board and he's available, what do you do here if you get a certain offer, right? It's an exercise in that. But what it is not is a predictor, right? It's not a good predictor of what's going to happen. It's very flawed if you try to use it like that. And yeah, I think anybody who thinks you can get Abdul Carter outside the top 3, I think you're tripping. Like, you're not going to get Abdul Carter out the top 3. Who knows? You might not even be able to get Abdul Carter at number 2. Because, again, if a quarterback doesn't go number 1 overall, that usually means an edge rusher or a tackle's going number 1 overall. There's no tackle prospect that's going to be number 1 overall quality. So probably going to be an edge, right? Now, again, it depends on what the Titans want to do. But if the Titans don't love a quarterback, they're probably going to take an edge. And if they take an edge, they have to take Abdul Carter. That is the best prospect, in my opinion, in this draft class. Not saying that Mason Graham's bad. Not saying that Travis Hunter's bad. But that is the best player at the best possible position to draft that high, to take. I do think he's as good, if not better, of a prospect than Travis Hunter at his position. I mean, again, think about the comps we're giving him. These aren't average run-of-the-day comps, right? A lot of people compare him to Micah Parsons, one of the best defensive players in the NFL. Me personally, I look at him, I see a little bit of Von Miller in there, right? that dude's got to go super high in the draft. And the fact that we're not having conversations about what if that's the possibility, and we're just assuming we could just trade back and get Abdul Carter, I think we need to start having. I think the trade back conversation needs to be, what does somebody need to offer us to make it worth our while to not get Abdul Carter? And I think it has to be significant, right? So, how well Abdul has played in the last stretch of this season, how much he's improved, even with the hurt shoulder, that to me shows me that I'd be absolutely fine turning that card in at 2 for him. I'm always going to err on the side of just get the dude, right? Like, that's my overall draft philosophy, I guess you could call it, but it's more or less like my draft hopes for a football team is to just draft the dude. When you have a position, to get the guy. Don't get cute, just take the guy, right? And part of that philosophy exists because I've watched the Browns get cute in the draft far too often, right? 2011, we could just take Julio Jones. No, we need to get so much better. We need to draft 1 million players. So let's just trade back into 20 and get a bunch of different decent players so we can get better. And that ended up being, up until the Deshaun Watson trade, the worst trade the Browns have made since coming back in 1999. I just don't think we need to get cute here, right? When there's a dude available at the pick, and look, if Carter's not there, I'm full on team trade back, right? But if Carter gets to 2, I am 100% okay with just turning that card in and getting a really good player with the second pick of the draft. If you want to trade back from 34 to get more picks later on, cool. I got no problem with that. But if a dude is there at 2, and I do think Abdul Carter, to me, certified dude, certified baller, definitely going to be a good player in my eyes. If he's there, I just take him. Again, maybe I'm on my Sonny Weaver Jr., Abdul Carter, no matter what. We'll see how I feel once we get to the draft. But right now, as of recording this video January 9th, 2025, unless the offer is magnificent, right? Unless I'm getting like 3 years of first-round picks and a swap plus a third, I'm taking Abdul Carter, man. Like, the trade back has to blow my mind, because I do think there's a significant difference between Abdul Carter, Mason Graham, Travis Hunter, and the rest, as far as the impact that player is going to have there, especially when you consider you're pairing this dude up with Myles Garrett. Like, you saw all of what I've been talking about of why I think this guy's going to be the perfect piece to put next to Myles Garrett, and somebody who can help you have one of the most dominant defensive lines in football for the next 10 years. Like, Myles Garrett could be 40 and be playing next to Abdul Carter, and he's still going to get 15 sacks because they're playing together. That's how good of a tandem I think they could be together. It's something to think about. Do you want to be sitting here? It's easy to get excited about trading back now, but in 10 years, do you want to be looking back, watching somebody play that you could have drafted and thinking to yourself, damn, well, was it worth it to get like an extra third and an extra second? And think to yourself, damn, was it worth it to get an extra third and second in 2026 to not take that guy? Hey, look, I don't have a problem with trading back, but I do have a problem with passing on guys who are really good. And Abdul Carter is going to be really good in my eyes. And if you pass on him to trade back, you better be right about who you select after that. But that's how it's changed my mind on trading back, right? Let me know about you guys, because I know most Browns fans at this point want to trade that pick back or want to move back. Let me know what y'all think about that. I know most Browns fans up to this point have wanted to move back from 2 and use that pick to get extra draft selections. But if you watch this game, you saw how well Abdul Carter played and how well he's played just at the end of this season and just this season completely, and you've seen the film breakdown. Does the ideal of like him not being there if you trade back really change your mind? Because, again, I don't think it's realistic to think that you can trade back and he's there. I don't see how that's possible. Like there's not enough quarterbacks in this class, and there's hardly any quarterbacks. I like usually for that to happen, there needs to be a bunch of quarterbacks in the class that kind of push the draft board back to push a guy like him out of being like in the top 3. I don't even think there's one quarterback in this draft class that's really a true top 5 pick. I think if you draft the quarterback in the top 5, you're hoping, but I don't think they're really like true top 5 prospects. So I just don't see how that guy doesn't get selected before pick 3 gets turned in. But let me know what y'all think. Have a great day. Have a better night. Peace.